Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Hard-hitting talk continues, ladies and gentlemen, as we go straight to our guest, Kirk St. John's, founder, Solum Global. Check it out on the internet, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about the world's first transparent digital network backed by gold. Wow. Kirk, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, couple things. First, I want to learn about you as a person, though. How did you get into this digital currency stuff? You're kind of a mover and a shaker and a pioneer in this realm. How did you get there?
Well, frankly, there's a lot of us that the American pioneering spirit, I think, is something that's still going strong.
Amen.
I was 26, 27 years old when my brother, who was an Air Force officer, chief information officer, did not re-enlist. So in 98, I went out to Seattle right at the beginning of, the .com universe. And we got into, technology out there. One of the first things we did was start an internet service provider. You might remember back in the old days.
Oh, yeah, back in the days, I used to have an ISP co-located in my radio station with dial-up connections and everything else. 48 banks of modems and all this kind of crap. Go ahead, sir.
Well, no, that's it's funny because I've done a few of these interviews, and as people have pinged me for history, I've started thinking to myself, wow, this is kind of interesting, right? You just live your life, and then sometimes when you look back. But the very first thing we did was connect people to the internet. And it was a similar model to what we're doing now. There was existing technology. So at that time, it was AOL. But during the first few years of the AOL world, forward-looking people started to do things like instead of co-locating in a radio station or something like that, they actually started to build out co-location facilities. So Level 3 and some guys got together in Seattle and built out this really beautiful, modern, climate-controlled facility. And so our entity, Liberty Bay, we put in, new servers and, just modern technology. And we were able to offer that same ISP solution at a time. AOL was doing it for $19.95 a month. We did it for $9.95 a month. And you may find this hard to believe, but back then there was a lot of cities and counties and even state agencies. There were universities and other major institutions that didn't have dial-up service. So my very first foray into technology was, getting the backbone in place and then convincing people to get online with us. So that's kind of how I got started in technology.
I love it. I was building computers for colleges back in those early days when the internet started to come out, and I was building I built this terminal so that a buddy of mine could communicate on the internet and would talk to all these different protocols and services by hand and stuff. Now it's all scripted and everything else, but we did it all by hand back in the day. And I sold, listen to this, 20 megabyte hard drives to colleges for like $700 a pop.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's something to watch, how it's developed. And, I'm sure we'll get around to the idea of the digital network here. But there's just been this steady progression, from the moment, people started to say, hey, what does getting online mean? And then email pretty much made that kind of ubiquitous for everybody because they could understand email. And then we went through the next stage. When we were doing Liberty Bay, we built up the subscriber base and wound up selling them all to Earthlink, right? So it was a nice little, 3 to 5 year business plan. It worked great.
That's right.
And the next thing that happened is we got introduced to, call it the family at Amway. And maybe some of your listeners will recognize that. Amway is like one of the largest, oldest network marketing companies, vitamins, soaps, minerals. Someone's probably tried to get you to join Amway.
You got to have double X vitamins,
some point in your life. Yeah, right. So they had 1.3 million members spread around the world, multiple languages and country currencies and things like that. And, they wanted to, air quotes, they wanted to get online. They were still signing people up with, paperwork. And I even met one of the older distributors who was really successful. He actually had carbon paper to sign up new, Amway distributors under him. And we were looking at it. They needed to be able to have people in an internet community. And this is before Facebook. This is before Twitter, and these kind of platforms where everybody goes to it, but you have a personal profile. So we had to think that up and build that out. Added to that, the e-commerce that was going on in the back end, so whether they were selling business support materials or, again, vitamins, soaps, minerals, the different array of products they had there, and put all that stuff together and, got them connected online, right? And that was our next major project that we got involved with. And it was right about then that people started to, nudge me and say, hey, have you heard of Bitcoin? And then the whole world changed.
Yes, we knew it was only a matter of time if they connected the whole world that dollars and cents would be at the center of it, digitally speaking, manipulatable like you wouldn't believe, Lance.
Yeah, I mean, the world has dramatically changed. It's really exciting, and it's concerning when you look at the possibilities. Obviously, a digital currency, you worry about what they're talking about, social credit scores, and how they may be able to control the money. But of course, some of these products on the blockchain are obviously a way to get around that. And if anybody knows about it, it obviously is Kirk. He has a lot of experience in that. But Kirk, tell me this. What do you think? Where do you think this is all heading? If you were going to give us a snapshot of the next 24 months, where do you think we're heading with this?
Well, 24 months, I don't know. I mean, the adoption rate of technology, like technology itself growing, the adoption rate of new technology is speeding up, right? So I don't know if we limited it to a 24-month period or if we were able to look a little further out on the horizon. So let me answer it in two chunks. In the next 24 months, I believe that X is going to launch a crypto wallet, making the ability for people to buy and sell things on the internet and other places through
now,
a wallet.
Let's be clear, too. That's not speculation. Musk has hinted at this over and over. So it's only a matter of when,
Absolutely.
not if, right?
Absolutely. And again, just out of respect for the other party, I'm going to say, yeah, I believe it's not an if, but a when. Yes, and I think that's the case. In fact, I was in Dubai, which I don't know if how much your audience knows about crypto, but Dubai over in the UAE has emerged as sort of the Silicon Valley of crypto, right? There's just an enormous crypto community, blockchain community, developers, companies. The regulatory environment there is very mature. So I was over there looking for tech talent myself and was interviewing a group. And they had just been on a call with some of the people from X. And Elon was actually on that call. And, they didn't give me a lot of details, but it's clear that the powers that be over there, and he's obviously a massively forward-thinking technology guy, right? And, they're planning for this. And his partner and friend Peter Thiel over there at PayPal, right? You might remember Elon was a co-founder of PayPal.
Yeah, we know Peter Thiel over the years for all kinds of stuff. Libertarian guy, big money guy,
absolutely,
PayPal guy, etc. Yep. Go ahead.
Right, and so they call it's a compliment, although the phrase may seem a little derogatory, but it's a compliment within the tech community. They call those guys the PayPal Mafia. Right, and there's like this picture of the core, maybe it's 6 or 7 people at PayPal. I think they were at a diner or something somewhere. And if you look it up online, and all of the people in that picture went on to do incredible things. And so they're just a really smart group of guys. And I bring that up to say that PayPal.
It all depends on who you know that cut.
It's right? True. It is true. But PayPal launched a solution that's basically, from a technological standpoint, it's the same thing that we've launched. It's a wallet. It's a solution. You can use cryptocurrency to move, store, and do things with money. And they launched that last summer, in August of last year. It's been kind of quiet. But the reason they did it is they understand that the way that money is minted, the way that money moves, the way that money stores, is going through a radical change, and crypto and the blockchain are going to be at the heart of it. So I see these two giants of the industry, PayPal and their actual product that's out, and X getting ready to take a product out, which I would say in our 24-month window conversation right now, that's going to happen. And you're going to go from, call it an interesting guy on your radio show talking about something that's coming to 100 and I don't know how many X users there are. I think like 170 million or something like that globally. So if you take them and you take PayPal, all of a sudden you're going to have this point where holding in the palm of their hands, hundreds of millions of people have access to using cryptocurrencies as a real world form of receiving and sending and storing money. And I think we'll see that in the next 24 months. If we want to go
Joe
past
Biden
that,
and the deep state, by the way, Kirk, Joe Biden and the deep state are matching those moves, regulatorily speaking, behind the scenes, one step at a time as well. So beware, right?
Well, yeah, I would absolutely say be aware at a minimum. I think that you're going to find that oh my God, I just did a Google while we're talking, and it says there are approximately 556 million active monthly users on X.
Yeah, but that's counting all the fake
that's
accounts,
a lot of
Kirk.
People. Okay, right. Well, if you can't trust Google, who can you trust?
Yeah.
There you go.
A little sarcasm. But nonetheless,
This is
there's
getting
a
better
number
by
out
the
there,
second.
and there's a lot of people that use it, and I think you're going to see that in the next 24 months. But if you look down the road historically, and you can even look back in time, and you'll see that there has been a historic struggle to have, one worldism, right? Is it a one world government? Is it a one world set of laws? Right now, we pretty much have a one world aviation system. So whether you're landing in Singapore, Dubai, London, or Mexico City, you're on one world system. So the one world thing, unity, the United Nations, however you want to put it, and whether you like it or not, we're moving in that direction. And I think we're going to see in my lifetime a one world digital currency. And I think that it's technologically makes sense. I think there's a lot of governance reason it makes sense. I think there's a lot of issues that it will create and certainly would give Big Brother, if you will, one hell of a tool. But it could also be properly governed by what you might call patriots, if that's the right term to use for your audience, in a positive way. But the technology exists, and the nature of technology is that if something is cheaper, faster, and safer, people adopt it. And I think we're going to see that happen.
Do you think the United States government's going to assert control and be in control of it? Or do you think it's going to remain partially renegade, where everybody's kind of like, hey, as long as we have the blockchain so you can see the transactions, and as long as we can keep it out of the hands of government, we can encrypt things and this and that. And, a lot of people believe it's that we're going to fight the government with this tool, and a lot of people believe the government's going to take it over. I believe, and we'll get to your point here as the broadcast continues to unfold, I believe the only answer is with gold. Gold and silver is the constitutional currency, and had we stayed on that, we wouldn't have the dollar in jeopardy right now, is another topic. But before we get to the gold part, what about this idea? Do you think it's a government tool to control us all, or do you think it's going to be a freedom-fighting wedge? I don't want to say against government, but more in spite of government, if you will.
Well, I think that in the background behind that, you're seeing something else that's happened in, say, the last maybe say 100 years, certainly in the last 50, concentrating in the last 20. We're getting to the point where the technology that exists that allows you to govern things, so whether it's your email or your bank account or all the people in a healthcare organization or the voter rolls here in America, the number of people necessary to control the technology is rapidly shrinking because the technology is becoming more and more efficient. And when you throw AI into some of the development processes here, we're probably at a point today where less than 200,000 or 300,000 people, properly educated, could run a global technological system, whether that's a technocracy that's a terrible despot, or whether that's for liberty, is going to be a battle that takes place behind the scenes to see who's in control of the technology. The technology will certainly be able to pin you down and hurt you or set you free. But it's the person behind it. You think about the truckers in Canada, right? Remember they all went to, was it Montreal they went to and were beeping their horns? You guys remember that during COVID?
Yes.
right? So when
Unfortunately.
they started to do, yeah, well, I mean, the Canadian government worked with different agencies, banks and otherwise, to shut down those truckers' bank accounts.
Yes.
I can't remember. I think it was Give, Send, Go had set up a crowdfunding site to donate to them. That got shut down. They were shutting down the insurance on the trucks, so the trucks could no longer remain parked there.
There was even gas stations that were unwilling to let them fill.
Exactly. So that is an example of where the control from a few people could directly impact not only the lives and livelihoods of those truckers, but have a huge statement on the global scale because that was being televised all over the world.
That's
so
right.
in my personal opinion, right, and this is just now me as Kirk St. I think what they did was wrong. You know what I mean? I don't think you should have done that. I think those people should have the right to go there and make statements and protest and all that stuff. Now, if I had an office downtown and some guy was outside my window beeping a semi horn all day long, I might have a different perspective. But generally speaking, I think that they had the right to express their grievance, and I don't think it was right for the what is that, Trudeau government up there
That's right.
to put the boot on their face, 1984
But
stuff.
I would say this, though, if governments realize that we the people just want an appropriate way to have a redress of grievance, as the First Amendment in the United States calls for, and people want the same thing around the world. They see the truth. They see what we have that they don't. Now, I know it's not working properly right now, but and if you give people appropriate ways to express themselves and have that redress of grievance and have those opportunities to affect change, they wouldn't be outside your business just honking their horn. That's their last resort before it gets worse.
Yep.
And I don't want either of those two
Absolutely.
scenarios. Don't misunderstand my point. I'm just telling you they've driven us to this point, and if they're not careful, they'll drive us way beyond that point. I think that's what they want, Kirk.
Well, and therein lies the idea of me saying that behind the technology, right, there's going to be those people that say have the levers of control, have the password, if you will, to the technology. So the people that control those passwords are going to be the people that implement, either the liberty or the totalitarianism. But the technology itself, I don't think can be stopped. I don't think it will be stopped. I think it's going to become more and more ubiquitous. I travel a lot, was in Tanzania, other countries where there's developing economies.
And let me stop you there. Many of those economies have leapfrogged us, and they're leading the way. And so I bring that up because as you travel there, you're seeing a lot of the future before your very eyes, Kirk.
Absolutely. You see it. And that's where I was getting ready to say next, is that, the mom in the rural areas in Tanzania, she's, one lady I know that she made dresses, finally got some money. The first thing she bought was a smartphone. And she literally lives in, you're in your mind's eye, you can imagine, you've seen it on TV, the African clay huts, and there's a couple of them. She literally had livestock in the front yard. But as soon as she could couple together $500 or $600, she went out and bought a smartphone. So her kids can watch YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. She can stay in touch. So technology is something that people on a personal basis, because of the effect it has on the benefits in their life, they're going to adopt it. Right? And so when you talk about cryptocurrencies, wallets, blockchain, all that kind of stuff, it has a dual, edged sword. And that's where I think, the battle over the next, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it's going to take, is going to take place. And I'm a proponent of liberty. I'm a proponent of freedom of choice. And so I pray that I'll call it the good guys win. That's what I'm hoping for.
Lance?
I got to say this. I'm not a crypto expert. I'm not a blockchain expert. I've been reading about it, trying to get myself up to speed. And I think a lot of people in the country are of that same mindset. Obviously, younger people are more on top of what's going to happen. But I think what's compelling about what you're doing, Kirk, is that you've this tie into hard assets, because it looks like a lot of people are extremely concerned about what's going to happen once BRICS rolls out. And I think Obviously, we know that the 50-year petrodollar contract is not going to be renewed by Dubai at this point. So people are really curious. I mean, what do you think the impact's going to be? Because I think people, maybe even on your show, Sam, they want this education. They want to know about it. They want to understand it. They want to feel like it's safe. But of course, they see the press about people's blockchain wallets getting hacked, and everybody's wondering, is it the hard wallet solution? Is it the online solution? How do you protect your assets? And what does the future hold for at least the U.S. dollar?
Wow, that's heavy.
That's a great
I was
question.
thinking about that. Yeah, it is a great question. And, I was thinking about it, sort of on a historical timeline and currencies in general, right? You'll remember the pound for such a long time was the global reserve currency. And now it's the dollar. The dollar's looking kind of shaky. You've got, I did a search yesterday because I was trying to think, what new currencies have come into the world recently, right? And so South Sudan happened. I remember that Sudan split into two countries, and South Sudan came in. And I think it was like 2013 they issued their new national currency out of Southern Sudan, and it's called the Sudanese pound, right? So that's a new currency in the world. Bitcoin, you might say, is a new currency in the world. There's a lot of chatter about the BRICS currency and what it's going to be like. I was looking up some stuff on that a little bit ago, and there's a lot of consideration, and a couple of the Russian people in the ministry there have said they're going to do a blockchain-based solution, right? Which is, it's basically saying we're going to use the blockchain to govern and move it around, versus what people are used to today is the internet. So we start there with that, right? You get in your car, you're driving to work, you stop to get some gas, you get a cup of coffee, you swipe your card in the machine. The information on your card becomes digital, if you will, right? A digital currency of some sort. It goes out over the internet, it hits your bank, it hits the gas station's bank, everyone says, okay, this deal's good to go, and the green light on the cash register comes on and you get your receipt. So most people, certainly in the first world economies, right? So Japan, the eastern seaboard of China, Europe, you can go around and look at those. They're already used to carrying a digital currency in their pocket, if you will, right? But now what we're seeing happen is the movement from the backbone of it all being the internet to the backbone of it being a blockchain. And we don't got to go too deep into that, but there are different blockchains, just like there are different backbones in the internet. I've lived in different areas in the country, and one of them, there's a internet service provider called Spectrum. One is Comcast. There's AOL. I mean, not AOL, but AT&T, right? There's the Verizon network. There's all these different networks that encompass the idea of the internet. The same thing is similar in the crypto universe or the blockchain universe. There are different blockchains. But the idea,
and by the way, they have different feature sets and reasons for their existence, right?
Absolutely. Yes, they do. They do. But they also have some common denominators, which is that they're cheaper, right? The encryption element of it makes it safer. 9 out of 10 people that you talk about getting hacked, their wallet gets hacked. What really gets hacked is either the phone upon which they have their wallet, or the laptop or desktop or wherever they have their wallet stored. And the headline is wallet gets hacked, but really it's the computer. Like I have a friend here in Palm Beach, and he had like $180,000 in Bitcoin on a wallet. And he said, I was looking at my phone and I saw my wallet open, and I saw the function happening in which I logged into my wallet and I sent somebody else out there in the world who we've never been able to find all my Bitcoin. And I couldn't shut my phone down. I couldn't turn it off. I couldn't make it stop. So it was actually his phone that got hacked. Probably a phishing hack, got in there, and the guy took over his phone, logged into his wallet.
Hey, Kirk, can I stop you there?
When that happens, gentlemen.
Kirk, can I stop you there for a minute? I've seen these hard wallets, right? Is there a product out there that you believe is the safest, most secure way to hold your crypto?
All right, and I'm going to make everybody wait till after the next hour to get the answer to that question. Think about that, Kirk St. John's, ladies and gentlemen.
My fellow Americans, welcome back to Liberty Roundtable Live. We are the tip of the spear with your host, the hardest working man in show business, Sam Bushman, and I am your co-host, Lance Migliaccio from The Big Mig Show. It's top of the second hour, and it's better to be hurt by the truth than comforted with a lie. We are live in Utah and Colorado, and I've got to say I'm excited. Today we are here with the CEO of Solum Global, and let me spell that for you, S-O-L-U-M, Kirk St. He's a crypto expert, a digital currency expert, and Solum is a transparent digital network with a fully decentralized, permissionless blockchain protocol, and that's for storing, trading, and is transferring digital assets and gold between individuals, businesses, and governments, and they can do it anywhere in the world. Right before the break, I had given Kirk a fairly complicated question. I'm just going to reiterate that question. Hopefully I'll get it close. Obviously, lots of people are looking at crypto and they're concerned. There are people like me that aren't highly educated in blockchain technology or exactly how to protect their assets. They're worried about whether or not we see it. We hear the stories about their assets, crypto wallets getting hacked. We've seen hard solutions for crypto wallets. We want to know because we know when this first came out, it was difficult to pay for anything with it. But of course, people were trading in it. Looks like a great opportunity to really get something that maybe the government doesn't have full control of. But Kirk, you're the expert. I think the audience, and I think there's lots of people in my age group and maybe somewhat younger that are concerned. They want, this seems very, hard to nail down. You know your crypto, it's out there in the blockchain, but you're worried about whether or not people can take advantage of you. Can you kind of break it down for the audience about how this is safe and how they can use it effectively and what you think the future holds?
Sure. Yeah. Let's just start with the general idea that the way most people are going to access, call it cryptocurrencies in general, is going to be through something that, for all practical purposes, functions like an app. So the Solum solution, which we call it, is a crypto wallet, right? It's a multi-sig. We have biometric safety for when you're logging in. We do complete AML and KYC, and all that great stuff is there. But if you're just an average Joe looking at it on and I happen to personally have an iPhone, looking at it on my iPhone, it's just one of the other little app logos, and it has our Solum S on it, and I open it, and I log in, and it functions really very much like my Bank of America or my Zelle payment system, right? So from a user interface, your wallet's going to look like an app. Now, if you did it on the browser, on your laptop, or on a PC or something like that, it's a browser interface, but then it opens up and it looks just like a website that you would, log into and use, right? The difference is in the background, things are moving through an encryption process and through something called a smart contract, and the information is traveling out over the blockchain and has to be decrypted on the other side. So the first thing you find with wallets is what they call public and private keys. And these are sort of like super advanced passwords. So the wallets themselves, the crypto transaction itself is in fact very secure in general terms. But as I was saying prior to the break, sometimes the device you have your wallet on is where the insecurity comes from. And from a hacking standpoint, if you have, almost everybody has online banking now, right? Whether that's your online banking account that you log into, to pay your monthly bills, or if, like me, if you've got a kid that says, "Hey, Dad, I need you to send me $100," I'll log into my Bank of America and sell them $100 right on my phone. So there's a certain level of safety that exists in general because of the normal internet-based software. But unfortunately, that's a lot like having a super thick titanium lock on a door on your house, and the door is made out of 2-inch oak wood, right? So if I get there as the hacker, I'm not going to spend all day trying to break through the titanium. I'm just going to get out a saw and cut the whole hole out in the wood. And it's a kind of an analogy that there's a really dense, security package within the encryption process, but it's housed within, typically, again, an internet-based device, laptop, PC, tablet, or a phone. So 90% of the time people hear about what you're talking about, so-and-so got hacked and all of that happened. It's not the crypto side of it that got hacked. It's
Gotcha.
the normal, internet side of it that gets hacked. And then down from there, we have, there's normal wallets, but then there's another one called a hard wallet. And a hard wallet would be equivalent to, let's say you had a laptop at your house and you stored all of your personal data on it, all your pictures, all your passwords and everything, but you never connected it to the internet, right? That laptop is there. It does have Wi-Fi, but you just never connect it to the internet, so you're offline. And that prevents the hackers from using the internet to get to that laptop. Now they would physically have to come to your house, break in your house, find the laptop, and then you could have trouble. So a hard wallet is sort of almost like saying an offline version of a regular wallet. And, there's Bitbox, there's Ledger, they got the Nano X, there's Keep, there's a variety of them out there. And a lot of people in crypto, particularly the ones that are what you call, Bitcoin maximists, they will buy Bitcoin and they never intend to sell it, right? There are people that believe Bitcoin's going to $1 million a coin. So they bought
Gotcha.
coins at $100, coins at $5,000, coins at $30,000, and in their minds, they're never going to sell it. So they move all their Bitcoin into a hard wallet. And a lot of people heard a story about a guy that had done that, and then when he was at work, his wife cleaned out the office and threw away the filing cabinet that had the hard wallet in it, and it was in the New Jersey landfill, and he had like $160 million in Bitcoin on that hard wallet. Have you guys heard that story?
I did hear that story.
Yeah, right. So he was petitioning the, what is it called, the Jersey Transit Garbage People. I can't remember the name of the organization that handles sanitation, the sanitation department, for permission to go in and, go backwards and say, okay, well, if this truck left my neighborhood, it probably got to the landfill around this time last week, which means we were generally dumped in this general area over here. Can I put a big corridor around that and go through and sift through? And at this point, I don't know whether he got permission or what happened there. But therein is the idea. All of his Bitcoin, if you will, was offline. Therefore, it was unhackable. But in the real world, he lost the wallet and therefore lost the Bitcoin. So, we're just going to have to continue to go down the road here until technology, does get a little bit better, and that'll take away some of the concerns. But I would suspect, if you looked at a ratio of the total number of people with crypto wallets that have been hacked, and then the total number of people that have either e-commerce websites or online banking or anything like that have been hacked, crypto's even safer than normal e-commerce. That's probably the truth. I can look it up, but I'm pretty confident.
Sam, what do you think about BRICS? I'm concerned about the U.S. dollar.
Let's talk about gold and BRICS for a second. BRICS started out as kind of a joke. Now it's real. Now it's threatening. Even Saudi Arabia basically said, hey, we're going to jettison our agreement. We're going to back out, and we're not going to renew it. So we're going to end up kind of being part of BRICS. And, some say it's not real. Some say it's got more mojo than we think. And others say, well, it doesn't have mojo yet. My response to all that, Kirk, is simply this. Everything when it gets started is a little shaky, is a little questionable. But once they get this together, if it is really backed even partially by gold, it will blow the stability of the U.S. dollar out of the water, because we won't need, by force, for the United States to be the hegemonist nation that says we're going to force you to deal with gold and dollars, so we got black dollars or black gold, oil dollars, petro money. Once that is exchanged in other realms, the United States will be flat out sidelined over this, won't they?
Well, I mean, it certainly, we were talking a little bit earlier about emerging currencies, and I even mentioned the Sudanese pound. Bitcoin is a new type of currency. Digital currencies in general are new. But to me, BRICS is certainly making the kind of argument that even as an American, right, and I'm pro-America, 100%, but I also am conscious as a citizen of the world that there are power players in our country that over the history of, to go back as far as you want, that have used the dollar to beat the crap out of other countries. And in some cases, that wasn't fair, right? So just as a candid critique of ourselves and our system. So I think that is what set the stage for countries like Russia BRICS, Brazil, India, China, South Africa, to say, well, what other kind of solutions are out there? And it has been growing, but for me, they haven't deployed a currency yet, right? It hasn't happened. And I don't know enough about geopolitics and what's going on behind, the scene to see whether, that will totally take place. And then the other part of it is, as bad as people see the management of the U.S. dollar in the fiat system, so far it's been the most productive economic concept ever to exist, right? I mean, look what's happened with the U.S. dollar and the development on a global scale. And to me, we're now back to my argument that the U.S. dollar is more likely to be replaced by a global digital currency, so that there is just one giant coin. There's a lot of great reasons to have a reserve currency, by the way. It's not all just bully geopolitics stuff, right? It's the ability to have a common denominator in the marketplace, and that helps. There's a whole host of reasons why that is something that we ought to keep in mind, whether it's the U.S. dollar or U.S. digital currency. You guys have heard of the CBDCs, right? Certainly. But with BRICS, I'm in the watch and see mode, right? I think there's a sea change of what's going on here in America right now. I think America's a great country. I think there's a lot of people in America that are morally sound and want to see the U.S. use its power, both its military, financial, and its soft power, its cultural power, to show the world that we are capable here as citizens of this country to become politically involved, bring the right people into the administration of our government for the people and of the people and by the people, and put people in office that aren't going to screw over everyone in the whole world. Therefore, the idea that you got to get off the U.S. dollar doesn't carry the same weight, right? But if you're Russia and you see the sanctions that have happened there to Russia, then I could certainly comprehend why they would want to try it. But we've got a lot of call it cards in our hand, and it hasn't happened yet. And I'm going to be in the wait and see mode until it does happen.
And here's my response to all that. Because China is becoming the second largest economy in the world, because they control all manufacturing, Russia has been making all kinds of agreements. People are backing Russia. They are literally creating the perfect storm to destroy the dollar. The only real question that comes out of that is, out of the ashes, what will it look like, Kirk?
Mm-hmm. It could be quite ugly. Let's say. I mean,
isn't that the ultimate question, though? There's no way to avoid this eventual sea change. They've set the stage where all things are aligned for the dollar to meet its demise. I mean, I don't think that's debatable. I think the only question is what's on the other side of it.
Well, that's a hardline stance, and I have to think about it because I have seen several times in our history here where it seemed like America was on the ropes and wasn't going to win. And 5, 6, 7 years later, something happened that changed everything again, right? So it could be that the deployment of technology like the blockchain, are you guys familiar with how Bitcoin got into the world, the whole idea of Satoshi? Does that make sense to you? Do you know what I mean?
The whole idea that we don't really know who put it in place or anything else, you mean, and it just materialized? Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Exactly.
And that, to me, raises red flags.
And my first contact with Bitcoin was the Silk Road. That was the first thing I heard about with Bitcoin being involved.
Right. Well, but you look back and you say, wait a minute, this Bitcoin thing came out of the idea that some mystic Japanese mathematician came down from the mountain and dropped a Bitcoin white paper on the world in like 2009. And all of a sudden now we have cryptocurrency. That's a little too suspect. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy
Don't be fooled,
theorist,
people.
But, I think Steve Bannon has the thing on the wall behind him that says there are no conspiracies, but there are coincidences. I think that's his plaque. So to me, I think we're more likely to see a movement that takes us from, call it a multipolar reserve currency system, to a globally accepted digital currency system that everybody jumps on the bandwagon for.
But you know
then
what?
I would
that
add
means...
this to your...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. I was just going to say I'd add one more thing there because I've been around technology forever. My brother was in the U.S. Air Force, security clearance and all that stuff. I asked him one day when I went to Seattle, are there really little Martians and what kind of secret things do we have? And he said, well, I'm still post my tenure as an officer. I can't talk about all that stuff. I'm not going to talk about it. But he said, but I can tell you this. If you know it exists, not that you saw it on a sci-fi show, but if you know it exists, and back then I had a Nextel flip phone, right? And it's like your phone. If you know it exists, we're 25 years ahead. So let that sink in for a minute. The guys at the core, the Mensa Club geniuses that could even think up multi-layered computer chips, right? I couldn't even work in some of the chip factories in Taiwan, much less design the chip, build a facility, and run it. So there are people in the world today that are as far advanced mentally of us as Tiger Woods is as a golfer or LeBron James is as a basketball player. And it just doesn't insult me for someone to say, Kirk, you suck at basketball, right, compared to LeBron James. So the gap there is huge. But if someone says I'm stupid, right, that kind of rubs me the wrong way because I am intelligent, but I'm smart enough to know that there are people in the world that are so much smarter than me that I almost can't keep up with them. Right.
Well, and the group mentality, too, when you talk about these plants and running them and the complications, it's a group, a network of people that have passed down knowledge, and they may not all have the knowledge themselves, but you put those pieces together and I hate to use the village term because that's kind of a Hillary detail, but the point is that when you put these people together and you pass this along, though, hey, if you took each one of those people individually, they couldn't make it happen. But if you put it all together, it does happen because it just gets more and more and more advanced over time. And I think that's the key. Right. But here's a quote from the Founding Fathers, and I might butcher it because I'm just doing it by memory. But they basically said this. If something happens that erodes your liberty on occasion, you might call it a coincidence or a happenstance or whatever. But if you see a long train of usurpations, if you see that our liberty continues to get chipped away, it is not by happenstance. Well, you see that happening with money. They are running us off the cliff like lemmings when it comes to our... Look, we have, $34 trillion deficit? That doesn't even count unfunded liabilities. So they've created the demise of the dollar intentionally, maybe ignorantly, but intentionally. and so the question is, they want it to be replaced. They've been marching towards the destruction of America for decades, and this train of usurpation. So that's where I get my conclusion that, hey, they're going to lose control of the dollar. The only question is how and when and what does it look like on the other side. I don't see any way to avoid that with the train of usurpations we've seen. Even Joe Biden's making secret executive orders to set the stage for this, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, we're in a battle. And since you quoted a founding father, I'll read this one to you. I got it from a friend on July 4th. I believe that the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. Already they have raised up a money.
Yeah, amen to that.
Already they have raised up a moneyed aristocracy that has set the government at defiance. The issuing of money should be taken away from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. And I'm saying the founder of a company that is able to be part of the issuance of new currencies here in the world today. We've decided to go back to the early days of America where those currencies are backed by gold, so they're real-world assets. The concept of the currency is to help people transact in business, not create a governed aristocracy that can control us, but to provide an alternative to that system, which currently I call the central banking system, right? And usurp their authority before they destroy our civilization. And that's heavy. That's a heavy statement to make. But it's what's going on right now. And we are part of that. And where I was headed with my other statement is don't be surprised to find out what Space Force is really all about. And take a look at what's going on with Space Force and Elon Musk. He's the number one recipient of DOD dollars. And what he's
Donald put Space Force together, didn't he?
He did. And don't be surprised if the Russians and the Chinese wake up in 2 years and find out there's a satellite system circumnavigating the entire planet, and every single thing underneath it that's computerized is now subject to it. Let that sink in. Don't be surprised if the Chinese and Russians wake up in the next couple of years to find out a new satellite system has been put into space that circumnavigates the whole globe, and every other technology on the planet is subject to it. Changes the game completely.
Yes, it does, ladies and gentlemen. Now you bust out your Bible and quickly go to Revelations, right, Kirk?
Yes.
Listen, my name is St. John, but I don't, I mean.
We're going to go to St. John for this one, ladies and gentlemen.
It's
So,
funny.
What the heck, man?
Yeah, it takes a second to catch on to all that. But yes, it's true. So we'll see how it goes, right? And I don't want to see America go down, but I also don't want to see, evil people within our government hurt other people from an unjust perspective of using the dollar as a bully pulpit.
All right, let's
There's
talk about
gotta be a
BRICS,
better
though,
way.
for a second. And the reason that I think
Okay.
it has legs, forget a lot of the small countries that are involved. They just have to kind of follow the leader. They're hoping for a little bit of a coup on the dollar because they don't like the hegemonious abuse of America, pretending we're the world's cop and all that kind of stuff. But the small countries don't matter. What matters to me, though, is when you put together a currency, you get a China or a Russia or some of those big countries involved in that, and you back it by gold. Good money always drives out bad money, Kirk. It happens every time. The bad money becomes the U.S. dollar.
Yes. Well, and I have to say that that's absolutely true. But the U.S. culture that we have here, which we inherited, if you will, from the English in the city of London, right? We have a long history of people, like I call it an Alan Greenspan, that understand how to manage the global money supply. I would suggest the Russians and the Chinese have no experience in that whatsoever, and no matter what they put together, they're going to screw it up, like they did everything else. I don't know what they're doing in this universe, in my opinion. I think they can get the team together. I think they can bitch about America. I think they can say, let's do something different. I think they can come up with great ideas like gold-backed currencies. But when it comes to having the self-discipline to manage the currency, and our guys, I admit, right now are on the very cutting edge of totally screwing it all up. Don't get me wrong. But those economies over there have done nothing, ever. They've never done anything.
You're
and
right.
I don't think that Vladimir Putin and Xi have all of a sudden become 400-year-old money management people. That's a significant skill. It's like being married, right? The longer you're married, the better the relationship is, because both the husband and the wife, or at least the husband or the wife, learns how to live with the other person. And it takes time and experience to manage these kind of things. Even last night
they don't
on the
have
show,
that, but what they are is expert at tyranny making. They're experts at tyrannical governments and these kind of things. And currency has been used and controlled for that realm for quite some time. So they have a lot of backup experience. But you know what? Talk of de-dollarization is in the air. And I think BRICS could shake the dollar's dominance in a big way. The reaction of BRICS to the fiat dollar is, hey, we're going to create a gold-backed currency. And I'm telling you right now, I don't know why the United States blew it and left constitutional currency gold and silver in the first place. But they're going to beat us because if they use sound principle, the Bible calls it sound money. If they start using sound, honest money, it will drive out all of our money. It's only a matter of time. And if they know enough to do that, they don't need to know much else.
But you use the term in there, honest. And that is where I think our team wins, because there are people like me and you, and probably most of your audience here, who, even though we love our country, we're honest enough to say what I've said a couple of times now. Some of the policies we've used here with the dollar are not fair. That was what happened back in the Civil War. There's this stuff with Black Lives Matters and people are upset. But I have a lot of black friends, a lot of them, right? And we have an understanding that who was it that came down from up north to fight for the freedom?
Can you stay with us longer,
Good-hearted
Kirk?
American people. Sure.
Talk of de-dollarization is in the air. The crypto groups are starting to take center stage. There's no doubt about it. Also, BRICS is real and starting to take center stage. And BRICS has decided to implement a currency swap arrangement. Kirk, let's go straight to you. Do you want to explain that a little bit? Because to me, this is going to jumpstart their efforts, is it not?
Well, I mean, I'm going to say that when you think about the currency swap, you're talking about the basket that they have and their ability to do that and use their BRICS currency as a means of, conducting transactions?
Yeah, and when you look at the currency swap, you're talking about a financial agreement between two countries where they basically take a chunk of one currency and a chunk of another currency. They put it on kind of a hold so that they can for sure have enough liquidity to do business, right? If it's just kind of like a just-in-time inventory, it doesn't work because it's like, well, wait a minute, I don't have one of my, a fraction of my currency available. This ensures that the money is there and there's enough, quote, float to make it happen, right?
Right. And you see, I think it's China and Russia are doing that, particularly with oil trades going one way and products going the other. And I think that is very interesting. What would be a super big telltale sign is if they started taking all of their treasuries and cashing them in. I know China's done a few and whatnot. That would really demonstrate the faith that China has in the Russian currency and Russia has in the Chinese currency, or either of them have in the Brazilian currency. Right, and that'll really start showing you that thing's starting to get traction, and that's when I would lean a little bit more towards your sense of urgency around BRICS being able to knock the dollar out of its status. Right, so this is a very serious issue, and I watch it. BRICS is one of the news alerts I have, so I'd love to keep an eye on it because I just think it's an interesting emerging situation. But I would think if you saw China moving all its treasury money, if you will, into the Russian currency, then I'd really start to say, okay, China believes Russia knows how to manage money. But until you see that kind of sea change, China and Russia are just trying to figure out a better way to do deals. And
that's right.
I think
and let's be very clear. When I say this is a matter of time, I want to be very careful about timing. A lot of times people get tripped up on timing, and I think they're very foolish when it comes to money. This could last a lot longer. They've propped up this fiat money system in America for 110 years plus now. So they can prop it up and control it and manipulate it for a lot longer. The Ponzi scheme ain't about over from that point of view. Where I think the trouble starts to come in my mind, is when you start backing things by gold, you change the game. People flee to stability. People flee to okay. And so when you put that together with, say, a BRICS, it may not be BRICS. BRICS may fail. But just like the dot-com bust, okay, it didn't mean the internet was over. It just meant some players got, the hose job and other people got rich and, the chairs on the Titanic kind of rearranged. But it didn't go anywhere. In fact, we have way more on the Internet of Things than we had back then by far. And so I don't think BRICS may be the end game, but it will be BRICS or a BRICS derivative or a something coming out of the ashes of BRICS or something that does this, whether it's the BRICS as we currently understand it, maybe not. But eventually, though, even if the BRICS melts down and kind of fizzles, something else will take place. And eventually, there will be something coming out of the ashes of this. The reason I point that out and focus on that so much is we can either bury our head in the sand and pretend it's not happening. We can go back to gold and silver, hard currency in our own personal lives. Or we can say, I've got to take place in this global stage and this change that's happening. And your private company provides a way for us as individuals and businesses and everything else to actually participate in a way that's not completely controlled by government. It's really an opportunity, I would say.
Yeah, I would, and all of the pieces that you were just describing was the kind of impetus to get Solum Global going, because I saw Bitcoin come into existence and I saw the adoption rate that offered. I immediately understood that Bitcoin can't function as a currency in the sense of paying your electric bill or your car insurance or things of that nature, or paying your pool man or your waiter or something at work, because the currency itself was too volatile, right? You could pay someone in 1 Bitcoin today for something, and that Bitcoin could be worth 20, 50, 100% more tomorrow, or 20, 50, 100% less tomorrow, and then you might as well have the Argentinian peso. So it's not going to work in the sense of commerce in that regard of currency. So this is where we came out with the idea of the Solum Global solution, and the idea that you would be able to use what's called a stable coin. So for your audience that may not know this, I see all cryptocurrencies in general categories. There's certainly arguments to be made for others, but in general categories, there's stable coins and there's everything else. And Bitcoin is everything else. Ethereum is everything else. Dogecoin is everything else. Because most people buy those cryptocurrencies, in fact, because they want them to behave like a security. They want them to go up in value. That's why most people buy Bitcoin. No one intends to pay for anything in Bitcoin except for maybe, for fun, they might buy a Tesla.
Yeah, just
with
buy
Bitcoin,
low, sell high
reality,
is the idea.
Exactly. But a stable coin is a cryptocurrency that remains pegged to the U.S. dollar, and it's always worth a U.S. dollar, right? So one of the most popular stable coins in the world, in fact, the most popular, is called Tether. If you go to Argentina, there are a lot of waiters and young kids and college students that as soon as they get any money from their paycheck or from their parents or whatever, they translate it into Tether because it sits there in their wallet, on their phone or their laptop at the same value as the U.S. dollar, while the peso diminishes in value. Another country where you see a lot of that is Turkey. Turkey has the lira has gone to pot, so to speak, and certainly the last 7 to 10 years, right? I was in Istanbul in 2020 November. A lira was 7 lira for $1, right? So I'm doing a little Google here, lira to dollar, see what it is today. Today you can get, it takes, I got to do it the other way, but it's like 30 lira. So that's how down the lira has been to the dollar just in the last 4 years. So if you're in Turkey and you had 7 lira and you bought a stable coin for $1 5 years ago, you could sell that stable coin today and get 32.87 lira back. So it's a hedge against inflation. So a stable coin is a digital currency that will allow people to use it in the real world economy. And so back to the issuance of money, right? And we've got our founding fathers, we've got the Constitution. We had Franklin Delano Roosevelt take us off of the gold standard to partial gold standard. We got to Nixon, and he took us completely off gold and put us into fiat. And here we are today.
Yeah,
so
that was
we
the
went
1-2
and
punch.
said, it was a significant punch, and it's had its impact on not only America but the globe. And so, I look at emerging currencies, whether it's a cryptocurrency, whether it's a Solum Global digital currency, a central bank digital currency, something the BRICS are going to come out with. I think that definitely in that direction is where we're headed. I believe that currency needs to reflect the current solution that the dollar provides without the baggage that comes along with it. And I think that's the currency that will emerge victorious. And then, obviously it's my personal perspective. I think, again, we're moving towards a position in the world where we're going to have a one world digital currency. I think all the powers that be want that to happen. And I think it's good for the common man. And I think it's the easiest way to manage money. And I think we're moving in that direction. So companies like Solum Global, companies like Tether, there's a basket of us out there that are moving in this direction. And just like it happened with, operating systems on your laptop or cell phone carriers or social media platforms, one of us is going to emerge as the titan. And that's definitely going to happen in the next, I think, 3, 5, 7 years. And
who's going to be the Jesse Ventura of the money world is the question we want to leave you all with, ladies and gentlemen. Lance, why don't you get all the information people need to know to be involved with Kirk?
Yeah, I think, Kirk, I really would like you to lay that down for everybody because we had some inquiries. Obviously,
Sure.
We had a little glitch on our show.
Okay.
We'd love to hear how they get involved, what rounds you're in. I know you had a couple of rounds of raising.
Okay.
This sounds like an amazing opportunity because you guys provide a service. One of the great things is you sit, a lot of the cryptos are fiat. They don't have any backing. We talked about a stable coin, but there are lots of others, meme coins and other where people have seen tremendous upside, but people are confused. But here's something that actually takes advantage of the entire market. And I think that's why it's an incredible opportunity. So tell everybody how they do that. How do they get involved?
Sure. So, basically, it's, the typical URL, www.solum.global. And so normally you'll hear .com or .net, but this is just .global. So SOLUM.global. There's a contact us button up in the top right. Just send in a little note that you'd like to hear something. The company, is about a year or so old. Skip the break?
Yep.
Yeah, we're skipping the break.
Liz.
We want to keep going
ahead,
because
Kirk.
we love what you're doing, Kirk. Go.
Oh,
We'll let you finish.
let me keep going. I apologize. All right. So the company's about a year or so old, and we came out with, our initial round was a 15-cent round. We went to a 30-cent round, and then now we're at a 50-cent round in what's called a private placement memorandum. So that's out. We can get that information out to people. It'll tell you about the company. It'll tell you about our plans. It'll tell you about our forward-looking financial statement and what we, hope to do, which is to be drawn into the public market on the NASDAQ or on the New York exchange here, in the next couple, 3 quarters. But I think one of the most interesting things is we're the first, call it crypto or blockchain company that's been invited to launch our product, which is November 12th. But we've been invited to do that up at the United Nations headquarters in New York. And that's because we have such an exciting amount of interest in what we're doing on a global scale, both for, businesses, governments, individuals, a means of storage and things like that. So Solum Global is really going to kick everything off at what amounts to a big conference, party, dinner, there at the UN. We're going to take pictures on the floor and all that stuff. So we'd love to hear from you guys or anyone in your audience. Sam, I offered the invitation last night to Lance on his show, but, you're certainly invited to come. It's November 12th, New York City, starts at 6 p.m. We'd love to see you there, and we'd love to hear from anybody in your audience that wants to learn more about us at solum.global.
Kirk St. John's, thank you for your time, sir. Godspeed. We'll have you back.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
Hey, thanks,
Lance,
Kirk. We really appreciate it. I'll reach out to you.
Lance.
Yes, sir.
It's time for lawmakers to start considering abandoning the Federal Reserve fiat system before it's too late. Okay, look, we need the free markets to be the cornerstone of what's going on here, and we need it backed by gold, and we better get it done. We better not just bury our head in the sand and pretend this isn't happening, because, look, whether you're a crypto guy or not, like, Kirk is a super crypto guy. I'm a guy that says don't dip your toe in the crypto. I'm not really a fan of crypto. However, Kirk's right. This change is a coming, and you will not stop it. The technology is already solid and here and tested and vetted and ready to go. And so this change is happening. And the only question left for us is how we handle this change. And so I say we've got to have our politicians start looking at sound money. And we got to realize that's the only real hedge against inflation. We need to return immediately to sound money if we want to come out of this doing well. And what I like about the Solum.global solution is they are backed by gold. They are looking at sound money. How do you couple sound money with a global economy is the question. And there's one of the great answers we've just talked about, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, we were never supposed to have a fiat currency. I mean, this situation where a private institution is printing money and then not only charging us for printing it, not only the cost, but then charging us interest on it as if somehow it's got some value. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I've never liked the Federal Reserve Bank, and the Fed is where my position's always been as soon as I understood it. So, yeah, look, this makes a lot of sense. The thing I really like about what Kirk's doing is I think the concerning thing about crypto, Sam, is what you just hit on. A lot of people don't understand. We know the stable coins. We understand those are backed. There are stable coins that are actually backed with gold and platinum and other precious minerals, the precious metals. But the point is there's meme coins. There's all this other stuff. But here's an opportunity. This product actually takes advantage of the entire market. It creates money because they get paid for each transaction they make. So at the end of the day, you look at that, and if you think about it, this becomes the mainstream because the fact that you can actually hold a hard asset like gold, they're working with gold companies all over the globe to fulfill the hard asset of gold. If somebody purchases gold, they can actually get it delivered. He was giving me some of the breakdown yesterday before we had that technical glitch on the show. This is exciting. I think this is a great opportunity, and I think it's a real solution. The Federal Reserve around the globe needs to go away. You've got this private institution held by a private number of families. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard, Sam. Why are we paying somebody to print our currency when we should be printing it ourselves? And why aren't we just buying up gold just like bricks, buying up platinum, buying up palladium, and making sure our currency is backed by a physical product so that it's actually secure?
Well, you're right about that. And not only are we creating or paying them to create, money, they created like a dollar bill, and it costs 2.5 cents to print a dollar bill. It costs 2.5 cents, and then they call it $100 bill. What's the difference? Nothing but fraud, ladies and gentlemen. Is the
exactly.
reality. And then on top of that, though, now they want to charge us interest on that, as if somehow, because they're the monopoly in money, they can do that. And that's what's got to stop, folks, those fundamental principles that violate honest money. Honest money says we're going to trade something of value for something of value, not something created out of nothing. And since we're the God and we can force it, we're going to force our non-value to become value. That's where the fraud's committed. It happens all the time, and it's happened for decades, over 100 years, over a century in the United States alone.
It's
and
disgusting.
That's how, as our guest Kirk pointed out from the Founding Fathers, look, these bankers are just thugs. They're flat out criminal gangs against the people. And how we can take this back and not have government control it, that's going to be a very, very epic battle. Like I say, I look to Revelations for the guidance on this, and pretty soon you're not going to be able to buy or sell anything. Call it whatever you want to. Call it conspiracy theory. Say whatever you want. But at some point, if there's a central control, there's a central kill switch, Lance.
Listen, and that's exactly the point. I don't want to see that kind of control, because let's face it, I think our social credit score, Sam, would not be very good. I have a feeling they don't like the truth when it comes to social credit scores. And look what they're doing. That social credit score really impacts people in China. They'll stop you from buying a beverage in a cooler at a 7-Eleven style store if your social credit score is too low. You're not allowed to buy that drink. Are you kidding me? I don't want anything like that. And I don't need bigger and more government. I need a government that stays in their lane and we do us.
Amen. We got to be very careful, though. I'm telling you right now, Kirk's right. This is a coming. And Kirk's point is, hey, if it's coming, I might as well be kind of a leader in it, to do my very best to make it as private sector as it can be, and do my very best to make it backed by honest, intrinsic value currency as I can. That's where Kirk's coming from. And I happen to agree with the general point.
Hey, look, it's inevitable. At this point, I think it's been proven, and I think that's the problem, right? I think it's going to happen more and more and more, that we're going to have to get it. We can't stay on the sidelines in this. We're going to have to get involved. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be talking to Kirk a whole hell of a lot more.
Well, I think he's smart. I think he's on the leading edge of all this. I'm not a fan of the United Nations either. And so, when we get invited to go to the United Nations to see this, currency launch or whatever you want to kind of say, I'm interested in going actually to see kind of how that goes down. But I'm not really a fan of the UN. I believe we should get out of the UN and shut that down yesterday as well. But again, what Kirk is saying is, hey, these players exist. And if they're going to move to a global currency, who is going to be the one to have their hand on that pulse? Who's going to be the one to control it and to make sure that it goes down the right paths opposed to the wrong paths? And I'm not really happy with big corporate world, but at the same time, compared to government, at some point we have to take it. You can call it the lesser of evils, you can call it what you want, but what are we going to do about this individually? You can go back to a agrarian lifestyle and not communicate in the world and jettison all the technology maybe, but at some point you won't even be able to get seeds, Lance.
I think the direction all this heading is inevitable, and I don't disagree with you on the UN. You know me, when it comes to World Economic Forum and the WHO and the UN, I would be definitive. The UN would have 60 days to get out of New York. I wouldn't allow that to continue. Just like the WEF and the WHO, they wouldn't have any control over me, and I would put them on the international terrorist watch list and all the members. So, I agree with you, but you have to be careful that you don't buck something so hard and miss the opportunity or miss the involvement where it impacts your life in a negative way. I think we're going to have to be involved in this at a certain level. I'm not telling you have to fully 110% embrace it, but I think there's a middle ground, right? Because you can't hunker down in a bunker, because eventually your assets and your resources are going to run out. You have to get engaged. There's no sitting on the sideline all across the board. And I think, let's face it, if more people were involved in something like Solum Global, you'd have to look at it from the perspective, that of course it's going to make it become more mainstream. It's just like crypto. If everybody really fully embraced Bitcoin, but I always get concerned because, again, Bitcoin isn't backed by anything. That's my concern. They always rave about the fact that there's only 21 million Bitcoins and they'll never print anymore. And it's blockchain.
At least I get TP out of the money we have today. I get nothing out of Bitcoin if it goes south, right?
Yeah. And, there's been a lot of theories that at some point it's going to fully tank out or at some point all the global governments are going to make it illegal, that they're going to put Bitcoin on a list, just like they're talking about that with Ethereum, because they feel like it's still too involved after the Silk Road debacle. They're still concerned that there's too much black transactional, dark web kind of use of Bitcoin and Ethereum to make these payments on things. So I don't know what's going to happen. You always have to be concerned about that because let's face it, walks like a duck, talks like a duck. It's a duck, and we've heard those stories. But I think Solum sits outside of that because it's taking advantage of the entire market and it's providing a service-based product with global appeal.
So and I think doing so in the private sector backed by gold. Those are the two huge levers, ladies and gentlemen, that we don't like going down this road, but if we're going to go down it, let's put those levers in place. Private sector, in other words, not just government-controlled edict mandates, but, people can choose, and then back it by some kind of an honesty, gold. Now you're getting somewhere. So the real end game is who will the players be coming out of the other side of this? That's really the epic question. The $64 million question, is that what they call it, Lance?
Yeah, it is the $64 million, or maybe more. Who knows? But yeah, I like global.
$4 trillion question.
I like services. I like global. I like the picture. He's a great guest. I think he's exciting. I'm going to have him back on at my show. I know that. It sounds like you will too. Sam, this was a great show for me. I've got to tell you. I hope the audience loved it. I hope they enjoyed it and they love the education that comes with it.
Well, and it's hard to plumb the minds of an expert like that because I'm a financial expert to a great degree. I've been mortgage licensed and I've been insurance licensed. And so I've got quite a bit of financial acumen as well.
Yeah.
I try to put it on the kitchen table for the average listener, though, who may not be caught up, for me to debate some of the internal details of how the blockchain works or in details what the pros and cons of crypto are. At some point, the audience gets lost. And so I've tried my very best to keep it simple, but to apply it to your life in ways that are meaningful, to let you know what's coming in the future, and most importantly, providing solutions of how you can deal with it, Lance. We always tie things to solutions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think solutions, and I think he's got it. He's experienced. He's been in that lane. I don't like the UN, but maybe that exposure will help this company grow very rapidly in the marketplace. I wouldn't be surprised to see them get an early acquisition, although I think he's in for the long haul based on what he told me.
Well, time will tell, but I know this. We need to keep an eye on what's happening for the future because these changes will come. They will happen. And when they do, I want you folks to realize, hey, there are options out there. And you don't just have to look at, Joe Biden's, quote, digital currency through executive force to be the key. You can look at somebody like Kirk St. John's and this Solum Global product, because you can make choices. You can put your money, your reserves, your wherever you want to, from becoming part of it by buying shares, or using the service as individuals and businesses. Both are critical for it to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Safety, security, obviously, and you've got to just make sure that you obviously have to educate yourself, because this is not, for me, it's a brand new world. I mean, I've been studying it, but I'm still somewhat confused, Sam.
Ladies and gentlemen, all I can tell you is I've been telling you to get beans, bullets, and Band-Aids forever. It's kind of a joke to say get prepared, right? I've been telling you to get honest money, constitutional currency, and now you can look at, Solum Global, Solum.global as one of the great answers to be involved as well. Put a little bit in a lot of baskets. That's how you'll have financial wherewithal and stability. Lance, final comment to you.
Listen, Sam, I just want to thank you and the listeners for having me on the show as usual.